Hey guys, welcome to When Spirit Talks. I'm Stefanie Ruth, a best-selling author, Reiki Master, and spiritual coach who is ready to help you unlock your intuitive abilities, raise your vibes, and find inner peace on your sacred journey. Let's dive into spirituality because when spirit talks, it's time to listen. In today's episode, we talk about different spiritual signs and symbols that your departed loved ones, ancestors, angels, and guides offer you. I'll start off with one of my stories, and then we'll get into 7 common angel signs. So let's go. I was driving to work one morning, and I remember hearing a faint thud when I was on the parkway. It sounded like a tree had fallen right behind me, so I looked in my mirrors to see if anything fell, and luckily nothing did, and all was well. But in that moment, I heard that quote from Dr. George Berkeley in my head. It's the one that says, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? In that moment, I remember thinking about that question, and I did answer it for myself. And for me, of course, the answer was yes. I then started thinking about how I could transfer that concept into my ideas about self-love and self-worth. And so I reframed it and I thought, if someone doesn't love you, does that mean that you're not lovable? Or if someone doesn't notice your worth, does that mean that you're not worthy? And of course, the answer immediately was absolutely not. We are always worthy, regardless of how others perceive our worth. And we are always lovable, regardless of who loves us or who sees that in us. And it was not even a minute later when a new song came on the radio. And for me, I love my music. I'm always listening to music as I'm driving to work. And so this song came on by Grabbit's Pretty Melody 70. And the lyrics that popped up were, maybe my trees went down with no one to hear it, nobody knows. And immediately I thought of that thud that I had heard where I thought a tree came down, and I started thinking about that quote about a tree falling. And if no one is around to hear it, does it still make a sound? So in that moment, I started smiling because it was the exact thing that I was just thinking about. And it was such a great moment and such a powerful moment to remind us about that synchronicity and about how, for me, there are no coincidences. Everything is meant to happen. And in that moment, it was like all the signs were pointing towards that specific moment when angels came to give me a sign and give me that confirmation that yes, exactly what I was thinking about self-love and self-worth and how we are worthy of love and we are worthy of great things, regardless of if someone else sees that in us. And so that is my story leading into the angel signs and symbols that we get, because that was a reminder to trust the signs that you get, to trust your intuitive psychic gifts, and to trust your intuition. So again, that was my little tiny story about spirit interrupting my morning commute with that tiny magical moment. But now let's touch on some other common signs from spirit, and we'll get into 7 of them. The first most common sign that spirit is around you is feathers. So again, I love feathers. The feather that I drew when I started my spiritual business, Live and Breathe Reiki LLC, is built into my logo. So feathers are the number 1 sign that your angels are nearby. And just like the saying, when feathers appear, angels are near. When you see a feather falling down from the sky, when you look down at your clothing and there is a feather stuck to your sleeve or your pants, or you're walking down the street and you see one on the floor in front of you, that is a sign from spirit that is a sign from the other side. And it's interesting because each feather color has its own meaning. And I dive more into this in my book, Your Sacred Journey, the ultimate guidebook to align your mind, body, and spirit. But it's interesting to see how the meanings of the colors of the feathers correlate with what spirit wants to tell you. So let's get into the second angel sign that's most common. And we're going to talk about coins. So it doesn't matter whether it's a penny, a nickel, a quarter, or a dime, but the next time you see one on the floor, especially if it wasn't there before, you know it didn't fall from your wallet, you didn't see anyone else drop it, that is your confirmation. The third sign is angel numbers. We've all heard of these. There are tons of websites you can look at to pick apart the meaning of these numbers. But when you see repeated number sequences like 1111 or 444, your guides are sending you a message. Similar to the feathers, each number sequence has specific meanings. Now, some of these meanings are general and collective, like 1111 is all about spiritual awakening. And, it's like make a wish. 444 is all about divine protection. But a lot of times, these number sequences can have very specific meanings to different people. And that's why there are so many different sites with different meanings for the same numbers. So what I always tell my clients is to use your intuition when you're researching or looking up numbers or any kind of symbolism, because your intuition will tell you which message is for you. And your intuition will tell you which message resonates the most. And that is the message that Spirit wants for you. So number 4, music. Again, I love my music. I can't start my day without it. And that's when I get the most downloads from Spirit, is when I'm driving to and from work. So I have a pretty long commute each day. And that is my time where I get confirmation of ideas that come through. And similar to the one that I mentioned earlier in this episode, what you might find is that certain songs come up when you need specific guidance. So if you're driving or listening to music and a word pops out at you, or a phrase pops out of you, or the music, the melody elicits some kind of emotion in you, that is your sign. And again, certain songs may come up when you need specific guidance. So really start to think about the lyrics, what you're noticing, or what words stand out when you listen to them. If the song reminds you of a loved one, that is a sign directly from them that they are visiting. Now let's talk about sign number 5, which is animals. I know a lot of us are connected to animals. Some of us are dog people, some of us love cats. And really, I think sometimes the world is divided into cat people and dog people. But regardless, animals often serve as a go-between from our life on earth and for those in spirit. It can be represented in any animal form, but a lot of times when you see butterflies or dragonflies or birds, it's as if they are flying from spirit. They're connected to air and spirit in that way. So they come to remind you that you're being divinely protected and guided. And just as a side note, it was really funny or interesting to me because as I was deciding whether or not to start this podcast and name it, I was debating on whether I should even do it or not. And in that moment, I heard a sign from my grandfather, and it's always a very specific sign from a bird because the noise that the bird makes is the same kind of whistle that he made whenever he was around. So in that moment, I heard that sign, and then I saw a white butterfly fly past the window. In that moment, I knew that that was my confirmation. So I started working on channeling and creating ideas for the name and the logo. Now, the name came to me quickly because lately, all I've been hearing and using is the slogan, "When Spirit talks, it's time to listen." And so that came to me right away. And as soon as I settled on that name, I immediately saw another white butterfly flying across the window. So I took it as my sign. I finished the logo, again, incorporating that feather that I love so much. And of course, self-doubt and fear crept in. And I asked for another sign. Not that I asked for the signs before, but in that moment, I needed confirmation. I needed a sign to let me know that I had to push through the self-doubt and the fear and go ahead and get started. So I started typing up ideas, and I looked for that sign, that go ahead, that green light. And as I was outside typing up some content, I saw a third white butterfly fly across the sky. And at the same time, I heard that sign of that bird call from my grandfather. So again, when Spirit talked, I listened, and I just knew that I had to start this podcast. So let's get into the sixth common sign now, which is about a rainbow. Now, we know they're beautiful and awe-inspiring, but rainbows often pop up after the rain, after a storm, physically or metaphorically. So again, if you see a rainbow pop up, that is a sign of angelic support and encouragement for you to move forward. And the last sign I want to mention is about scents and smells. So I'm not talking about smells that are currently in your environment. What I'm talking about is a scent or a smell that no one else around you is kind of picking up on, or a scent or a smell that comes out of the blue. And when that happens, that is a sign. And if the sign reminds you, if that smell reminds you of a loved one's perfume, or the cologne that someone you loved always used to wear when they were alive, that is a sign that they are visiting you in spirit. Similarly, if you always baked with your grandma and you always put cinnamon in your recipes and all of a sudden you smell cinnamon, there she is coming to visit you. So really take note of the scents and smells that are around you that no one else can smell, and that is one of your signs. So there you have it, the 7 common signs that Spirit is around you. And remember, when the universe sends signs from Spirit, it's a confirmation. It is validation, a reminder that you are all of the power that you possess inside. You are powerful, you are amazing, you are intuitive, and Spirit wants to get your attention. Spirit will always try to get your attention, but it needs you to open up and listen. Spirit will send you signs and signals. They're little waves and nods so that you know you're not alone in this world. And when you start noticing them, they will continue to show up more and more, stronger and stronger, until you can no longer deny it. Trust me, and then begin to trust yourself. So I hope you loved this first episode on this podcast. For more information on how to build self-trust in yourself and in your intuition, follow me on Instagram at live.and.breathe.reiki or visit my website liveandbreathereiki.com.